Hello and welcome back to Umineko.
Welcome.
Just start right up, I guess. We're starting off with me doing a bad voice. This voice is actually easier for me than most. Ava, I think we better cool our heads too. The receipt's definitely a big clue for figuring out how father disappeared. We should. Hold on, can you talk for me real quick?
Yeah, hi.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to make sure everything was getting caught up. I wasn't sure if your audio was getting caught up. The receipt's definitely a big clue for figuring out how father disappeared. We should tell the police about it when they come.
That's right. Right. I just felt a little triumphant when I figured out that part with the receipt. Of course, it isn't fair to only suspect Natsuhine-san, right? We are just as suspicious.
Look at that fucking smile. Look at that fucking. She knows what she's doing. You know the moment she saw that receipt, she jumped. She was so excited to be able to
Can you
accuse
imagine if she just
Natsuhi.
can you imagine if she just made up the receipt thing?
Oh my god, that'd be fucking insane.
That would be pretty funny.
If, God, if
But,
Natsui didn't pick up that receipt, is she we could just be like, you're fucking lying. What the fuck are you talking about?
but there's no way to prove that Natsuhi just missed it, like, just like didn't see it.
Yeah,
We could just say that. There's no
yeah.
way to prove that she there's no way to prove that she just didn't miss it or something. But still, Butler-kun, at least the part about the receipt is real, okay? Don't forget it. And try thinking deeply about what it means one more time, okay?
I love I love main character syndrome because everyone's trying to get Battler on their side. Like it's always just
This is like, this is earlier, this was them trying to get Rosa on their side.
yeah. They just need someone to bully into joining their side. But like we see this later too, that a lot of times they're just like desperately like, "Hey, Battler, what Battler?
Yeah.
Don't you agree? Don't you agree, Battler? I don't know. Why don't you ask Genji? Like, why is it always Battler?" Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi stood up. It looked like they planned on leaving the parlor.
In the end, it's pointless for us to keep playing detectives. After all, the police will reveal everything anyway.
That's right. Even if we don't play this detective game, the typhoon will pass. And when those lively seagulls return to the harbor, everything will settle itself. That's right. If you think about it, this kind of crime is completely trivial. It will definitely be resolved, even if we do nothing. They said the thing! When the
Holy shit.
seagulls cry.
When the seagulls, holy fuck.
When, oh,
Holy shit.
when the seagulls cry. Alright.
Good one. Really got him with that one. Natsuhine-san, I take it you don't want to see my face anymore? I feel the same. If I remember correctly, yesterday you had some rooms prepared for us in the mansion, so that we wouldn't need to go back to the guest house, right? Those should each have a bath and toilet, as well as a lock and chain to secure the door. There's even a bed to lie on, and my husband will be able to watch TV without having to fight with Maria-chan over which channel to watch. Right?
Just imagining Hideyoshi and Maria having a full on fist fight. I think Maria would win.
Yeah.
No holds bar.
Hideyoshi would not want to
No,
hit her, I think.
no, no holds bars. I'm saying they are
Oh,
fighting.
okay.
I think Maria would
Okay,
still
yeah,
win.
I
I think
agree.
I think she's squirrely
Hmm.
enough.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want, but make sure to be cautious.
Thank you, Nason. And mind your own business. I'll be counting on you to keep an eye on everyone, okay?
She she told you to be careful.
Because the culprit is definitely here. And Nason, make sure you don't forget to keep an eye on yourself, too.
Have you finished taking your parting shots?
Yes, I'm finished. See you, Natsuhine-san. Kenji-san, let us know when it's time for dinner. Until then, we'll lock ourselves in with a chain.
Ichi, Kanon, escort them to the guest room.
We'll be fine. I hate shady escorts. In fact, I'd be more comfortable if nobody leaves this room until we reach ours. Let's go, George.
Fuck you, Mom. I'll stay here with everyone.
George, the culprit is in this room. Do you plan on staying in a place like that?
Even this room would be the same as suspecting one of my relatives. I can't believe anyone in our family is capable of something that horrible.
George, darling, you tell him too.
George is already an adult man. If his code tells him not to leave this room, then it's up to him. Let him do what he wants. Father. Aunt Ava, Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi left. The only voice that called after them was the sound of the rain. The parlor was being buried beneath the savage atmosphere. When I looked at the clock, I was surprised to find that it was already evening. Had we really spent that much time worrying about needless things, talking with each other, fighting with each other? Feeling bored, I started scratching on my head when Maria and I made eye contact. I was a little surprised, since I thought she was completely immersed in the TV. I believe it now.
Ah,
The letter, the murders, everything. It was all Beatrice. In fact, I almost feel like begging her to come out and take credit for it all. I want it to be a work of a 19th person. Otherwise, the 18 of us will have to keep on suspecting each other. I don't know if they touch on this later in the game, but
mm-hmm.
why does the 19th person have to be a witch? Like, from what I remember, whenever they talk about a 19th person, it's always the same as accepting the supernatural. Like, it's always treated the same way. Not just a 19th person happened to fucking Jason Voorhees their way through the family, you know?
Mm.
Like, they treat the 19 as though it has to be a supernatural being, rather than just some guy, just some dude, you know? They like I feel like I don't I feel like they don't tap into that as much. I don't remember them treating the 19th person as though it was just a regular fucking guy. Anyway, I think believing in a 19th person is better than that. Bringing grandfather outside without opening the doors or windows must be a piece of cake for Beatrice, right? Maria, after taking a single short breath, hung her head and then raised her face again.
That's right. Locking a door is useless against a witch. Beatrice is familiar with all 72 demons. The 33rd ranked got gives the power to instantly carry the desired person to any location.
I forgot that Balor's kind of a beta bitch. Like, He
What do you mean?
he folds pretty fucking easily sometimes. He's just like it's like he's folding first round in poker, you know? Like the cards haven't even
Mm.
the cards haven't even been like shown, and he's just like, oh, I'm
You know,
fucked.
I was kind of thinking he was just saying that.
I don't know. I don't know. After that fight, it doesn't seem like something he'd just say, especially
Yeah, that's fair.
especially with the line of reasonings of 19th person being a regular person.
Mm. To her, taking a person out of any closed room isn't hard at all. You see?
Because sure are incredible. Tell her if it feels like committing another crime, to do it in a way that no human could. And make me believe that a 19th person, no, a witch, exists.
Okay, if I meet her, I'll tell her.
Do you think if Battler challenged Beatrice to a duel, she'll be honor bound to do it? Like,
I don't know, but
like,
that
do
would
you,
be pretty fun. Like, what kind of duel are you
oh,
talking about?
like, I'm saying fucking the 10 duel commandments style, you know?
Mm.
Like, I'm
But
saying,
why would they duel? What are you talking
I
about?
don't, I'm, no, my thought is, do you think if Battler was just like, Beatrice, you and me, high noon, if I win, you stop it. If I would, let, let's do our own devil's roulette. If I win, you stop what you're doing. You win, we can keep doing this for as long as you want. Do you think she'd take that? Do you think she'd take that?
The whole thing, the whole point is solving the mystery.
Yeah, I know, but like, do you think she'd take that? I'm saying like maybe the back door exit. I'm not saying this will be a good way. I'm saying like we stop this now. I win. We stop this right now. I lose. We can keep going until the original rules are fulfilled.
What are you talking about even? We haven't even reached any of their interactions.
I know. No, I'm saying no, no. I'm saying in the canon of the first episode. Do you think if
Oh,
Battler was like, all right, a witch does exist, and I challenge her to a duel? Do you think Beatrice would show herself for that? Would she show herself, or would she be no? Oh, fuck you, all about it. Do you think she would respect an honorable challenge?
that's a great question that I don't know the answer to because I think too hard about it. I think I think with the context that we have right now, she would.
I love, God, it'd be so funny if this fucking almost as long as Homestuck game, like it could have just ended right in the beginning if Battler was like, "I challenge you to a duel. I I challenge you to an honorable duel." Crap. Nothing's made sense to me for a while now. Just when I want to believe in a 19th person, I deny it. And just when I want to believe there are only 18 people, I deny that too. Even though I want there to be more than just the 18 people here, I can't accept the existence of that 19th person. Because as we all know, if that 19th person exists, it has to be a witch. There's no other choice, you know? In short, even though there are more than 18 people, there are less than 19 people. The number of people in this mansion is 19 greater than x greater than 18. So the number of people can't be represented by an integer. However, it's impossible for there to be anything after the decimal point. You shouldn't be able to show the number of people with anything but an integer. And yet, 19 greater than x greater than 18. How do you explain the fraction less than 1? No wonder. That 19th person was something that couldn't be seen. That's why, since you can only write the number of people as an integer, you couldn't see that person. They were a fucking ninja. I don't know, man. Like, does it have to be a witch?
I don't know.
That witch cannot be seen, because Beatrice has no body. Therefore, she is invisible. Is there a 19th person or not? Does the witch exist or not? 19 greater than x greater than 18. The witch exists somewhere in that x. What was that, like 3 hours past?
And that's something like it.
The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. It was thick with the idea that simply thinking about the culprit's identity would be the same as deciding whom to suspect. It had begun to feel like discussion of the case was itself taboo. So no one mentioned the case, at least out loud. However, those thoughts were what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say aloud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. So, at least on the outside, the parlor had once again regained its calm mood. Everything was left unsettled. It feels like the rain's gotten a little lighter.
Still pouring down. Mm.
Even if it did stop, there's no boat on this island. Wouldn't it be nice if the boat came quickly tomorrow? I've had enough of this Western Mansion vacation. Mom, when will the boat come tomorrow? Normally, the boat to take them back would arrive at 3 o'clock today. They probably sent us a phone call to say that they would come after the typhoon passed, but unfortunately, the phones aren't working. But they aren't children over there. They were told to both drop off and collect their guests, so they will most likely arrive first thing tomorrow morning. Probably about 9, I believe. It was completely black outside. When I looked at the clock, I realized that it was just past 7 o'clock. I was starting to get hungry. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically. She had laid out a variety of dishes, and while they didn't match the level of Goda's artful cooking, they were still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, who was trying to enliven everyone's low spirits with some food. Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goda, but she was far from unskilled. On the contrary, since she had been brought up in a fishing village, the simple food she created was sometimes highly praised. Cannon arranged the food Kumasawa had finished creating on plates under her direction. Cannon also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward, even though he tried his best. Self-conscious about the fact that he couldn't cleverly arrange the food, Cannon's expression darkened slightly. But Kumasawa smiled as though everything was fine.
It's arranged beautifully. Alan-kun, aren't you skilled? If it had been Shannon-san, it would look even more beautiful.
Cannon stopped arranging the food for a bit and hung his head. Cannon was the one who always assisted Kumasawa in her cooking. Tonight, Cannon was doing it instead. And as he remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grimaced. Get that for now. Genji spoke kindly to Cannon as he advanced upon. Nanjo had escaped from the parlor once the mood had grown sour, and Genji had become his opponent in a game of chess upon Nanjo's request.
Yes, I will forget it for now.
Indeed, that is probably for the best. Genji purposely refrained from facing Cannon as he spoke. He did so because he understood that it might make things tougher on Cannon if he noticed that someone was looking at his eyes. Nanjo
Autism for real?
Nanjo
I just
also.
thought it.
I mean, yeah. Nanjo also understood that and held back any thoughtless words. I wonder where Kenzo-san has gone. I hope that he is safe, but... I do not know. However, I believe everything has proceeded as the master had hoped and arranged for. To distrust that would exceed my role as furniture in service to the master. Aren't you scared, Genji-san? I'm frightened that something bad will occur again tonight. I have nothing to be afraid of. I serve the Uchinomiya family, and that is all. Nanjo sighed through his nose and made a carefully considered move. Nanjo was very slightly dubious. Could Genji possibly be thinking that he'd be left out of this? He couldn't even imagine what was happening inside this mansion. But he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that Kinzo had devised something. If you liken this island to chess, Kinzo had opened the game, and as a result, 6 pieces had been defeated. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed he alone was on the outside of the chessboard and therefore safe? Nanjo thought about it. Isn't everyone just a piece on this chessboard, lined up equally without any exceptions? Wasn't even Genji, who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone? No, who was confident of his position as Kinzo's only close friend? Just another one of the pieces laid out on the chessboard? Genji-san, I'm truly frightened about tonight. I hope with all my heart that we will still be safe when tomorrow morning comes. The guest room Eva and Hideyoshi moved into had originally been built to house guests before the guest house construction. Until a few years ago, they had stayed in these rooms every family conference and were very familiar with them. This room was just like a room at a hotel, with a bedroom and a bathroom. So even though they were still shut in, it was far more comfortable than the parlor. Guess it's true you can relax more when you're alone with your family. Maybe better if everyone else also shut themselves in guest rooms and locked the doors.
Chewing. Natsuhine-san said that no one could leave the parlor, throwing her weight around. I'm sure no one will be able to talk back. She's always been treated so coldly, so that now that Nissan's dead, she's getting excited about finally having so much power.
So you realize you're a bitch to her.
Yeah, she just enjoys it.
Yeah, and then she continues to be a bitch.
Seriously, how shameless she can be. How shameless can she be?
Oh, now don't say that. Natsui-san's doing pretty well. No need to jump on her like that. And about that receipt earlier, you went too far.
Why I made it all up? Wouldn't that be funny?
Huh?
Why I made it all up? Wouldn't that be
That'd be
funny?
so fucking funny. Holy shit.
Come on. If I hadn't said it there wouldn't be another good time to say it.
Ava, sulking cutely and looking at the television, sat alongside Hideyoshi, who was lying on the bed.
Still, we haven't been alone like this for quite some time.
You're right. Come to think of it, both you and I have gotten pretty old. Since George was born, everything's gone by in the blink of an eye.
It really has. I wonder if we were too hasty in having a child.
Ava's eyes looked like they were staring off into the distance. Yes, she had thought of it as a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Her older brother, Kraus, had been unable to father a child for quite some time. 6 years passed after his marriage to Natsuhi without any signs of pregnancy, which didn't please Kinzo at all. Ava herself had thought that, since her name would be moved outside the Uchinomiya family register when she got married anyway, It didn't matter whether a successor to the headship was born or not. And then, one day, she had a heavenly revelation. Or maybe it was the whisperings of the devil that she had listened to in her greed. If she could give birth to a successor first, wouldn't she be able to remain in the Ushiromiya register? If things went well, might she have a chance to inherit the Ushiromiya family herself? When she proposed this to Hideyoshi, he had approved of it instantly. This wasn't because Hideyoshi also had greedy thoughts. For Hideyoshi, who had no close relatives, it was a chance for him to feel once more the long-forgotten thing called family. So when they got married, he hadn't fussed over which last name they were to keep, and had quickly agreed to have his name entered into the Ushiromiya family register. It hadn't been easy to persuade Kinzo, but as his daughter, Eva knew Kinzo's personality well. So, by choosing the time when Kinzo was most dissatisfied with Natsuhi, he was magnificently able to make him accept Hideyoshi as an adopted son-in-law. Looking at Hideyoshi, who had achieved success after starting from nothing, Kinzo might have seen a little bit of himself. He quickly grew to like Hideyoshi, and approved his transfer into the Ushiromiya register. George would eventually become the successor to the Ushiromiya family. They had raised him strictly with that purpose in mind. He had been worth their while and had grown to a fabulous young man who wouldn't disappoint no matter where he went. That was why he had not been permitted to fall in love with a servant like Shannon. So when she'd learned that Shannon was dead and the engagement was now invalid, though part of her had still been shocked by the gruesome crime, part of her had also been relieved that her dear George wouldn't be stolen by some servant girl.
Why are you saying it like that?
He's just a bad person.
Yeah. Yeah. I have hated Kraus Nissan since long ago. He was so full of himself, always swaggering around. So proud that he would one day become the head. So I wanted to get back at him. It's not just a childish emotion. But in the end, that emotion guided my entire life. If that had been all, then it would have been fine. But because of that emotion, I got you and George involved. I used you.
Eva, don't blame yourself for that. Hideyoshi got up and held Ava's shoulder. She could feel a warm understanding from him. Well, I reached the halfway point in my life long ago. But you know, I have absolutely no regrets about how I've lived my life. Not one. I think that since I've been with you, Ava, I've been able to relish an enjoyable life that other men never will. After all, after I lost my relatives in the war, you remind me what the warmth of family is. I'm grateful to the Ushiromiya family and think of it as my only one. In this life I've led with you, not a single thing's been wasted. It's really been a fun life up till today.
Thank you, darling.
Ava hung her head, burying her face in Hideyoshi's chest. Probably no one in the parlor could even imagine that this side of Ava existed. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Until today, there hasn't been a single day I've regretted being with you. Yeah, I'm remembering
Until
what's
today sounds so funny. I gotta laugh a little bit more.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm so glad to have you by my side.
George is already a fine adult. Even if I don't look out for him, he's a man who could do his job well on his own. I wonder. Around New Year's, you want to go spend some time in the Maldives? Just us. No one else.
No way. Aren't you always saying that you're so busy responding to New Year's cards that you don't even sleep?
None of that is it. None of that this New Year's. I won't read New Year's cards. I'll just stay quiet and check to see if I won the New Year's lottery. It'd be nice if we won a color TV this year.
No way. I don't want to waste time checking the lottery while in the Maldives.
And none of that either. How does it sound? Just the two of us, taking it easy like when we were newlyweds. Just before George was born.
Yes. In that case, fine.
I hear the Maldives are wonderful. An island with nothing on it, surrounded by the beautiful coral reefs and cottages lined up over the water.
Like when we were newlyweds, you say? Starting when?
As soon as I've finished up some business. I won't know until I ask the travel agency, but probably before New Year's Eve.
No way. Right now, I want to go right now.
Ava nagged at his lips in a peevish yet flirtatious manner. The only sounds that filled the rooms were the distant voice of the announcer on the news, which Hideyoshi had left on, and the obnoxious pounding of the rain against the window. Well, they fuck mere hours after finding 6 of their family members dead.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them.
I can't
Ava
fucking
specifically.
I can't fucking believe it. I can't believe it.
I can.
There was a knock on the door, and Genji-san entered. Madame, dinner has been prepared. Will you eat in here again? Yes. Have it brought here. Is Dr. Nanjo still in the kitchen? Yes. He has said he wishes to carefully deliberate over his next move. Do not worry. He's with the other servants. Genji-san's good enough at chess to be grandfather's opponent. I hear he's even better than Dr. Nanjo, right? That's right. Long ago he played against me, but he must have let me win. Maria, sounds like it'll be time to eat soon. Look at you, you've been watching TV all day long and you still haven't gotten bored.
I'm always watching TV, so I'm fine. Mm.
Maria-chan sure is a TV kid. The food's coming, so we have to clean up the table. Earlier, we had torn several pages out of Maria's notebook, and there was now a mess where everyone had been drawing together. Scott began cleaning that up quickly. Still, everyone here really can draw. I'd never guess. Genji, ask Eva-san and Hideyoshi-san whether they'd at least like to have dinner with us. Although they will probably turn us down. Certainly.
Yeah, they're too busy fucking.
First father and now Eva-san. It's quite hard to gather everyone to the Usodo Miya dinner table. Natsui felt her headache start throbbing again and lightly held her temples. The distance from the kitchen to the parlor wasn't that great, so Genji had gone and come back by himself. But the guest room was a little farther away. Natsui had warned him to avoid being alone whenever possible. And just now, Nanjo had also admonished him, saying it would be better if he held a little more concern for his safety. Kennen accompanied Genji, and the two of them went to visit Eva and Hideyoshi in their guest room. Genji knocked on the door. Eva-sama, Hideyoshi-sama, dinner has been prepared. He waited a short while for them to come out, but there was no response.
Genji-sama, look at this.
Kennen pointed out of the door. A Western envelope had been inserted under it. Normally, when something was inserted this way, it'd be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone in the room. So, since this might be a private note meant for Eva and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Kennen and Genji were supposed to take interest in. But this Western envelope was one of Kinzo's. The same kind as the one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with. There can be no mistake. It is one of the master's envelopes.
Or could it be?
Even though this was one of Kinzo's envelopes, the letter Maria read aloud the previous night hadn't come from Kinzo. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out in a loud voice. Eva-sama? Eva-sama! It is Genji! Are you there? Please answer, Eva-sama! But there was no response from inside. Sometimes, when the servants went to call some guests for a meal, the guests would be sleeping so deeply that they wouldn't wake up. In times like that, the servants would stick a letter in the door to show that it was time to come out and leave the guest be. But despite that, Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Ava's name. However, there was no answer. Cannon stuck his ear up to the door, held his breath, and listened for any sounds coming from inside.
I hear something that sounds like the television, but I don't sense anyone. The room might be empty.
Genji took out a handkerchief, and careful not to touch it with his bare hands, gently pulled out the envelope that had been stuck under the door. It was sealed with deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark on that sealing wax had come from the Ushiro family head's ring. Eva-sama! Eva-sama! Please, answer! Are you still in your room? But there was still no answer. There was a chance that those two were aimlessly walking around the mansion. This was the home Eva had grown up in. There was plenty of reason to think that she had gone out on a casual stroll. Genji groped around in his pockets and pulled out the bundle of keys, which contained the key that would open the guest room.
Genji-sama?
Cannon also understood what this meant. They would sometimes unlock the door so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they made sure the guests were out. To unlock the door for any other reason, and especially to do so when there was a chance the guests hadn't given permission and might still be in there, was an action unbecoming of a servant. But Genji had decided. If the only problem had been that his knock hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was doubtlessly one of Kinzo's. Or rather, one of the Western envelopes of the Uchiromiya family head. After last night, the sender of this envelope could be someone other than Kinzo. If this letter had been sent by someone else... Eva-sama! My apologies. Allow me to enter your room. After giving that final notice, Genji stuck one of the keys from the bundle into the keyhole. There was the sound of the door unlocking, and after slowly turning the knob, he slowly started opening the door. Light seeped through the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Or had they forgotten to turn out the lights? Clank. It was the sound of the door chain being pulled tight. The chain had been secured. The chain couldn't be secured from the outside. But it also proved that they were in the room. The sound of voices on the TV seeped out of the room. The lights, the chain, and the TV, all of these things made it clear that they were in the room. I don't know, I feel like you can lock a chain from the outside if you try hard enough. I'm just saying. I know what's coming up, and I stand by that. But there was no sign of them.
No, I'm not laughing at what's coming up right now.
You're laughing at my insistence at that?
No, I'm laughing at something else.
Oh god. Genji called to Eva once again through the crack of the door, but there was no answer.
Genji-sama, what should we do?
Simple, Cannon, we kicked on the fucking door. As part of their job, the servants were able to unlock almost any lock in the mansion. But they had no way to open a door with a chain. I doubt that. The only way to get by a chain was to cut it. I doubt that. That was certainly not permitted as part of the servants' usual work. The creepy chill had already rushed up their backs. Cannon held his breath again and tried to sense someone through the door, but even so, he was not able to sense anyone. I will call Madame and return. Cannon, cut the chain.
Yes.
As Cannon hurried away to get a cutting tool, Genji called him to a stop. Wait, Cannon! Return to the kitchen and take Kumasawa with you. You must not act alone.
Yes, certainly.
It looked like Cannon was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of this urgent situation. But Genji had said it out of wariness. He didn't care what happened to himself. But in the worst case scenario, he didn't want anything to happen to Cannon. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was piling food on the serving cart. Ananjo was waiting for Genji, apparently wanting to show him a move he'd finally thought up that might turn the tables on him. But Genji's appearance immediately told him that something was wrong. Oh, what has happened, Genji-san? Dr. Nanjo, my apologies, but please allow this match to be suspended for the time being. Cannon, take care of the chain. Kumasawa, stop setting up dinner for now and accompany Cannon. I will go over to the madame. If you would come with me, Dr. Nanjo. Has something happened? Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen.
Kumasawa-san, my apologies, but please come with me. What has happened, Kanan-san?
Kumasawa said almost exactly the same thing as Nanjo, unable to take in the situation, and chased after Cannon, who had flown out into the hallway. Taking Kumasawa with him, Cannon went to a storage room and looked through the tools packed in toolboxes and hanging all over the walls, trying to find something that could be used to cut the chain.
What are you looking for? Let me help too. We're cutting a door chain. Where was that large wire cutter? Door chain? Well, why would you do something like that? Hold on. Chain to Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama's room. Even though they should be inside, they didn't answer when we called them.
It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Heiva and Hideyoshi not answering were connected, but she did realize that this was an urgent situation.
That one will probably do the trick.
Cannon took down a very large wire cutter that had been hanging on the wall. It was called a cutter, but maybe it'd be easier to understand if we said it was shaped like a large pair of pliers. Cannon remembered once being warned that this dangerous tool could easily cut through one of your fingers. Cannon took that and rushed up the stairs. He already knew instinctively. He should fight for every minute, every second, to open it quickly. Or perhaps... Look already.
Please wait, Kanan-san. Hurry.
Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, gasping for breath with both her hands on her knees. When Cannon changed his grip on the wire cutters and looked up at the door, he let out an ah, struck speechless. I'm sure it's fine.
What is this?
Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face pallid. That was no surprise, because right there, on the door, just like the magic circle that had been drawn on the shutter of the Rose Garden storehouse, there was another eerie shape drawn with blood-like paint. However, it'd be odd to call this one a magic circle, because, unlike what most people would expect, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside it, but a slightly more complicated geometrical shape. However, those strange characters filling in the gaps, which weren't from the alphabet, were the same kind as the ones on the magic circle on the shutter. But the thing that had Cannon struck speechless wasn't how eerie the magic circle was. It was that something like this hadn't been here a short while ago. First, he had taken a trip back to the kitchen. After that, he'd gone to the storage room to grab a tool and headed right back. Together, it could have been more than 5 minutes. I think you could draw that in 5 minutes. I do! How could someone add something this creepy during that period of time? If you have a ton of practice drawing that shape, and you just come prepared, you could draw that in 5 minutes, 100%.
Yeah.
And as though it had just been drawn, almost like the door itself was bleeding, several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dripped down, getting longer and longer.
Beep. Beep.
Kumasawa's knees gave way and he sank down on the spot. If Kumasawa hadn't done this first, then Cannon surely would have wanted to.
Beatrice-sama. I forgot that was me. It's the work of Beatrice-sama. How horrid. How horrid.
Cannon gulped, then readied the wire cutter and approached the door. He didn't want to get close to this disturbing magic circle, and he really didn't want to touch the steadily dripping substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get close, he wouldn't be able to cut the chain. Fighting this cold feeling, he gulped again, and after gathering his courage, he went even closer, putting the wire cutter up against the chain. He then pressed with all of his strength, managing to cut through the chain far more easily than he'd anticipated. The cut chain fell into two separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth.
Ah, Canon-san, there's an envelope by your feet. And isn't that the master's?
It looked like Kumasawa had also noticed the western envelope at the bottom of the door, and that the sealing wax had been sealed with the head's ring. Cannon hesitated for just a second over whether he should open the letter first or check inside the room. But he eventually decided on fulfilling his original purpose. Cannon pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket. This was so he wouldn't leave fingerprints on the door. If his worst fears were realized, the police would want to investigate the tomb too. He slowly pushed the door open. He was able to more clearly hear the sound of the television, which had been seeping out faintly this entire time.
Eva-sama?
Ava was lying face up on the bed. On the bed, with her shoes still on. Kumasawa, who had been fearfully entered after Cannon and who was hiding behind his back, screamed a short eek again when she saw Ava like that. Ava's shoes has been the first part of her that Cannon had seen. So the oddness of wearing shoes in bed was the first thing to strike him. What a king. But when Ava's head shifted into his line of sight, Cannon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa. Right in the middle of Ava's forehead, something had been placed? Something was growing there? No. Right in the center of her forehead. Was it an old-fashioned knife? That or some weapon like it was sticking out. Ava's dead! Sorry.
I bet you couldn't wait for that moment.
I could not.
Oh, hell yeah.
At the base of where it was stuck in, blood dripped down, staining the sheets on the other side bright red. Kurosawa's knees gave way once more, and she sank down on the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Eva was dead, with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead. Oh, cryptic message. Ushiromiya Eva, found on the bed of a guest room inside the mansion with a weapon resembling an ice pick sticking out of her forehead. Both eyes were open wide, and the image of the person who killed her must have been burned into them. The only mouth capable of naming that person had been shut for all eternity. Even though her forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, the weapon was stuck into Ava's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright. And on the handle was a complicated design that you wouldn't expect to see on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. It was a vulgar object with a design that might have been of some demon.
What about Hideyoshi-sama? Hideyoshi-sama?
Ava was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. Where was Hideyoshi? After taking a backwards glance at Kumasawa, still on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. At the moment he opened the door, he was greeted by steam and the sound of the shower. The bathroom was of the same familiar style as most hotel bathrooms. When taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep water from flying out. That waterproof curtain was half open, and lying tumbled down in the bathtub was Hideyoshi, completely naked with both eyes open, and pointing right at Cannon. Just like Eva, a weapon with a demon-like design was stuck into his forehead. His head had been under the shower's hot water this whole time. His face wasn't half covered and filthy with blood like Eva's had been. But the sight of him dead while still taking a shower was tragic enough. Ushiro Hideyoshi, found in the bathroom of the same guest room that Eva was found in. Like Eva, there was a weapon resembling an ice pick sticking out of his forehead. You can't see either of them by looking through the gap of the door while the chain is set. You can't see them, so you can't reach them. Hayes, how could a human possibly kill them? Just then, they heard Natsui's voice coming from the hall. He was probably coming with Genji. With this graffiti! What about this letter? What does it say inside? I don't know. I haven't read it yet. We couldn't touch it carelessly. The culprit's fingerprints might be left on it. We can hand it over to the police. They went out of their way to leave it here. I'm sure they wouldn't have left fingerprints. As Natsui said that, she picked up the envelope. And before checking its contents, she entered the room herself, where she found Eva, dead. Eva-san!
Madam, Hideyoshi-sama is here too.
This is truly atrocious. And then turn off the shower. Don't let this be any more pitiful than it needs to be.
Don't waste the damn water.
I can only imagine what our water bill is gonna be like.
Yes, ma'am.
And then gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small jar of body soap had fallen with its cap off. It really looked like he'd been attacked while taking a shower. There was still a small splash of blood clinging to the white bathtub, and the combination of red and white made a horrible contrast. Dr. Nanjo, I understand. No signs of post-mortem lividity. Rigor mortis hasn't begun either. It would seem that an hour or so has passed since they were killed. But even so, how a weapon with such a short handle could do that to the skull? I cannot imagine. Nanjo checked their pulse and their pupils, making certain of their deaths once more. As Kan watched this business-like treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance they're dead without doing all that? Nanjo thought about removing the weapon, but then decided it'd be better to preserve the scene and hand it over to the police, so he left it alone. But a close inspection of the base showed that it didn't have a blade. In fact, it was more conical than blade-shaped. He noticed that, rather than a knife, it was more like a short-handled spear, something with a shape better suited for thrusting than slicing. Rather than a short spear, you might call it a thick ice pick. At any rate, after looking at the scene, no further words were needed to describe what sort of terrible purpose such eerily designed weapons were originally made for. Nor was it necessary to explain how they carried out their function. Natsui, hoping to escape that repulsive steam filling the bathroom as soon as she could, covered her mouth with a handkerchief and dashed from the room. Just viewing their guest room gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn their image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, that image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. The rising urge to vomit was exactly the same feeling she'd had that morning at the gardening storehouse. For a while, Natsui couldn't help but stand with her back facing the guest room, fighting that sickness in her stomach. At any rate, we can't let the children... We can't let Gorge-kun see this room. Fill this room with all haste.
Yes, we mustn't let them see. If George-san saw his parents in this brutal state.
But they could tell that those fiercely racing footsteps in the hallway belonged to George even before he came dashing into the room. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlor. However, when they saw Genji speak to Natsui, when they saw her turn pale and fly out of the parlor, they felt a sense of foreboding. And when they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, They were sure of it. Father! Mother! It's hard to do. Ah! What is this? Another magic, another magic circle? Iva and Uncle Hideyoshi are safe, right? Lincoln, what's this all about?
Butler-sama.
Anna didn't have to say anything. George's scream after he ran into the room told him everything they needed to know. Ah! Who did this? I'll kill you! I'll kill you! Pushkin, hang in there. Natsui touched George's shoulder with her hand. She violently shook her off. George fell over beside Eva and buried his face in the bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. Then he pounded on the bed with his fist over and over again. George Nissan! Hang in there! Huh? Rattler?
Butler-sama.
Rattler heads back against the wall of the hallway and was covering his eyes with his right hand and weeping without restraint. Horrible. Horrible. He proposed to the girl he loved and lost her the next day. And on the same day, even his mom and dad were killed. Isn't that too harsh? Of course, it's sad whenever anyone dies, no matter who it is. The Battler, those left alone by the deaths of others were far more worthy of the pity. Everyone here now had lost someone close to them. George wasn't the only one to be pitied. However, George's pain was far greater than everyone else's. The Battler... Oh, he would die sooner or later. You're human, you'll eventually reach a time when you've got to fight the sorrow of losing someone close to you. Still, shouldn't that day be far in the future for Aniki? Shouldn't those deaths visit him one at a time? Horrible. Too horrible. That bastard. That bastard! Does he have even a speck of human sympathy in him? Ah!
Butler, don't cry. Don't cry.
Maria tried to comfort Battler in a mechanical-sounding voice. Battler violently wiped his tears. Yeah. I mean, I won't cry anymore. Tears of regret, tears of sadness, I won't shed them again. It's all useless. Which has got me backed into a corner. I'm always on the defensive. And that's useless. It's all useless. Spin the chessboard around. That bastard probably thinks we'll be running scared like sheep until tomorrow before we try anything. Guess what? I'll spin it around. That bastard can't escape this island until tomorrow either. We won't be hiding away, pissing ourselves. That bastard will. I'll expose you, you'll see. Tomorrow. No, screw tomorrow. Tonight. Before tonight's over, I'll be gripping you by the collar. At any rate, we'll lock this room and leave everything as it is until the police come. No objections, I take it? Natsui announced it as though she didn't care whether they agreed or not. If anyone had a right to object, it would have been George, but he looked as though he'd shed enough tears. George nodded slightly, still facing away from the others. And when he stood up, everyone else agreed too. Natsui still hadn't opened that western envelope with the family head that she'd picked up. But now that they decided to leave this room, she decided to unseal it in the parlor, where everyone could watch. As soon as they walked out into the hallway to head back to the parlor, some of them immediately felt something out of place. Or maybe sensed something strange.
Ugh. Stinks?
Did you notice it too, Maria? Seriously, what's that smell? It's awful. When everyone sniffed the air, they did notice a horrible burnt smell drifting through the hallway. One that none of them smelled until then.
I will go quickly to check the kitchen. I'm sure I turned the flame off.
After noticing a burnt smell, It was natural that Kumasawa, who had just been using the burner in the kitchen, suspected that her own slip-up had caused it. Kumasawa hastily dashed away. Ken, go with Kumasawa. Do not let her be alone.
Yes.
After nodding at Genji's order, Kennen followed after her. He wasn't running, but as he followed her, he tried to search for the cause of the smell in other directions as well.
Thanks.
It truly is a stench that makes the nose wrinkle. However, that doesn't mean we can just open a window for ventilation. Natsui was reluctant to open the windows in a situation where self-defense was so important. Just run the fan. I do not believe there will be any need to open the windows. Torjanaki, is it okay if I talk to you? If it's about finding the culprit, then I have no problems. It seemed that George had managed to climb out of the abyss of that abyss of sorrow. All that filled his chest now was the quiet flame of hatred towards the culprit who had stolen the lives of the one he loved and his beloved parents. The chain for the room was set. From what I could tell by looking at it, I'm positive that it couldn't be opened from the outside. Sure, alright. In other words, this was a perfect closed room. That does seem to be the case. In the case of the Rose Garden storehouse, they might have sneaked Shutter's key out of the servant's room. Or maybe they had a duplicate key. I can imagine many ways they could have done it. This chain is different. Among generally used locking techniques, a chain is the simplest one to create a closed room with. Only a chain will block everyone coming from the outside as long as it isn't physically broken. Again, I still think it's possible. So does this mean the culprit couldn't have gone in or out of the door? That's interesting. Just a few hours ago, I seem to remember everyone making a fuss over how to enter a room without using the door. Back then, we were all losing our cool, wondering how grandfather had disappeared from his room. The receipt Aunt Ava stuck in the door on a whim proved that the door had remained sealed. And since Aunt Natsui was the only person to enter or exit during that time, she was under suspicion. Aunt Ava proposed a theory about how Aunt Natsui might have thrown grandfather out the window and left by the door herself. But this door is much simpler. It was sealed from the inside by the door chain. The window had also been locked from the inside and the bodies had been inside the room. This time, it really had been, without exaggeration, a true closed room. That's right. If you include grandfather's disappearance, 3 cases have occurred, and all 3 times, the door has been the point of interest. If you ask me, as long as there's a door that doesn't make it a closed room. The first was the shutter. There was a key in the servant room, and if we assume someone knew about that, this can't really be called a closed room. The next door was sealed by the receipt. However, Aunt Natsui entered that room. So if grandfather had left through the window or been thrown out, he would have been able to lock the window before escaping. Or, like my theory, grandfather could have hidden until the receipt was gone and left the room later. Basically, this door can be defeated with a handful of desperate tricks. In that sense, you really can't call this one a closed room either. And now we have the door sealed with the door chain. And finally, we have to give up. I guess, if you have a defeatist attitude. The window, the door, everything had been locked. It was a perfect closed room. There was still a door and window. The first hadn't been in closed room because everyone could be suspected. The second hadn't been in closed room because Aunt Natsui could be suspected. But this time, no one can be suspected. This was a perfect closed room because the door chain formed a seal that blocked everyone equally well. In that case, did the culprit carry out the crime without entering the room? With some method from outside the room? Good point. Even though the chain makes it impossible to open it wide enough for a person to fit through, you can open it a small crack. Did the culprit knock on the door to make them peer out before attacking them? Wait, am I missing something? Yeah, you are. Aunt Ava's body had been lying right next to the door, then it might have been possible. She was on the bed at the back of the room. Uncle Hideyoshi was even in the bathroom. Looking from the crack of the door, you couldn't even see them, and you couldn't reach them with your hands either. It's all useless. I don't have a clue! Something was tugging softly at my sleeve. It was Maria. I was expecting a jump scare.
That one picture from before.
Yeah, the fucking creepy ass Maria picture.
Satisfied?
What do you mean satisfied?
Adler, since you didn't want to suspect any of your relatives, you made a wish, saying you didn't want the culprit to be Beatrice, right?
Yeah, I didn't want it to be Beatrice. Fuck her. You accidentally added didn't.
I was wondering if I did. Well, Beatrice granted that wish, just as you asked. She did something that was completely impossible for a human, to make you believe in the witch. And now you're complaining? How selfish. Ouch!
I tapped Maria, who was laughing unpleasantly on the head with my fist.
Bonk.
Sure, thanks for
Oh,
granting that wish.
you need
What?
that bonk sound effect.
Oh god, that'd be good. I don't have a bonk, but, hold on. Do that laugh, then ouch.
Ouch.
Is that good enough?
Not the same.
Sure, thanks for granting that wish. That just now was to thank you, and also to teach you to stop laughing when it's inappropriate. More importantly, tell me. There was another mysterious scribble on the door to Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Another magic circle.
That one had a really memorable and characteristic design, so I'd hoped you'd at least know what it was. Ouch.
I don't know, which is why I'm letting you take the credit. Quit whining and explain.
You sure are violent, Battler.
Shit, man, you're being very nonchalant about 8 people being fucking dead.
Point taken.
Like...
I won't tell you if you're too mean. Get it?
Like, I think even the most staunch opponent to corporal punishment with children would make a bit leeway if there was a kid making jokes and like kind of just being nonchalant about a fucking mass murder, like happening.
Yeah. Ouch. I'll say it. I'll say it. Stop hitting me. That's the first magic circle of the moon.
What does it mean? What does magic circle's effect? What does the Hebrew writing mean?
The words are from the Old Testament. Psalms 107 verse 16. For he has broken gates of brass and cuts through bars of iron. This magic circle has 2 effects. First, it can open a door regardless of which method has been used to lock it.
Not sure it's convenient. So you're saying they're trying to make it look like they're a witch because this closed room has a door that can't be opened without relying on magic? And the other effect?
When you're blocked by unopenable doors in all directions, it opens a door. By using it in a difficult situation, it gives you a solution you hadn't even thought of until then. Generally speaking, you receive the powers of observation and discernment, inspiration and intuition. Beatrice is trying to provoke you, since there's no way lowly humans like Battler could figure out how this door was opened. Ouch.
I just think Battler isn't thinking outside the box enough.
Yeah.
Like, there's one. I'm pretty sure if I can 100% Google how to unlock a door with a chain. Like 100% I can find like 100 YouTube videos telling me how to. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good work. So shut up. Sounds great. I'll accept this challenge from a witch. Maria-chan, things like witches and demons don't exist in this world. Someone killed father and mother. I don't know whether that was someone I know or not, but either way, it was definitely a human. Yeah, but how? How did they reach those two through the crack in the door? It couldn't have been more than 10 centimeters wide. Okay, how fucking long? How long is 10 centimeters?
I'm not telling you, just for being American and not using metric.
God fucking damn it.
Just
If it
learn
was,
metric.
I would love to, but I'm too lazy. Centimeters to inches. So 10 centimeters, that's almost 4 inches. Ah, fuck. What's something I have that's 4 inches about? 4 inches though? That is wide enough to insert some sort of tool that can unlock a chain, though. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, at any rate, I can hardly stand this stench. What in the world could it be? Kennen and Kumasawa, who had gone on ahead, realized the smell wasn't coming from the kitchen even before they arrived there. That was because they noticed an even thicker wave of stench rising up from the stairs leading to the basement, which they passed on their way to the kitchen.
The boiler room. I wonder if there's something wrong with the boiler again.
Those stairs led to the underground boiler room. The mansion's boiler was old and poor condition. Both of them had witnessed problems with the boiler on several occasions, but they had never smelled the boiler belching out a stench like this. Slam!
Oh, what was that sound?
The thing they heard from the basement was definitely the sound of a door closing. Kumasawa had phrased it as a question, but she already knew it couldn't be anything else. Kumasawa was so surprised at the sound that her knees gave way yet again and she cowered. After all, at that very moment, no one could have been in the boiler room. Just a few seconds ago, everyone had been crowded together around Ava and Hideyoshi's room. So who caused the sound of a door closing just now?
Kanon-san.
After taking a second to sort out the situation, Ken ran down towards the basement. They heard the sound of a door closing just now, and there was no sign of anyone coming up the stairs. The person who closed the door had to be inside the boiler room right now, or they could leave. If the boiler room had been a dead end, Cannon wouldn't have rushed in so hastily. But Cannon was a servant, so he knew. There were two entrances to the boiler room, one that opened to the mansion and one that opened to the courtyard. If he didn't chase them now, they might slip away. Kumasawa reached the same conclusion long after Cannon did. She couldn't let him go alone. If the thing in the boiler room was the culprit, an opponent who had easily killed 6 adults in the first murder, then no matter how Cannon confronted them, it wouldn't be a match. Of course, with this argument, even if Kumasawa joined him, it wouldn't change anything. At any rate, after a delay, Kumasawa decided that she mustn't let Cannon go alone, and she rushed down the stairs. At that time, Cannon was already in the boiler room. The boiler room's characteristic damp heat tormented him. It had always been an unpleasantly smelly and hot place, which made Cannon feel like he was going to be sick. There's no doubt that this room was the source. In that case, Cannon should have been searching for where the smell was coming from. However, Cannon kept gazing straight forward as he grabbed a hatchet from a tool shelf just off the side of the door. He He hadn't stretched out his hand because he'd wanted a hatchet. He had wanted to grab a weapon. Any weapon. Why? Cannon gazed into the darkness where the naked light bulb couldn't pierce. Then he answered.
In roulette, you bet on a number or the colors red or black, vying for a payoff. However, low-risk bets like black and red only offer a similarly low payoff.
The words coming from Cannon's mouth were swallowed up by the darkness. That darkness suddenly started to swirl, glittering. I'm going to take this time now to explain. If you're experiencing Umineko for the first time, and you're like, hey, that's clearly some magic shit. Why are you so insistent on how it couldn't be a witch? It explains why. And that is the exact like mind space, headspace I'm coming from whenever I look at these situations. It explains why later, why I'm so, despite all this very clear magic bullshit, why I'm so like, no, can't. There's ways to do it that isn't magic. It'll explain why. Just in case anyone was wondering. It was such a fantastical scene. Golden, sparkling butterflies that hid in the shadows all over the boiler room flapped their wings, twinkling beautifully, and gathered in the darkness, disappearing. Cannon continued speaking, directing his words at the darkness as it swallowed the butterflies up. But as the butterflies gathered in the darkness, they, perhaps, probably, no, they would certainly laugh. But Cannon continued to speak without faltering in the slightest.
However, if you bet on something with a lower probability, your payoff increases proportional to the risk. The master called succeeding despite an astronomical risk a miracle. It called the astronomical payoff gained as a result magic. And I have no interest in what kind of magic you and the master were seeking when you spun that roulette. But you forgot something. You forgot that in roulette, there's a pocket that's neither black nor red.
Roulette has a special pocket called Zero, which means that the house takes everything in certain variants of the game. This means that all of the coins bet on the table will be swept up, just as though everyone has forfeit.
I set my heart on just one thing. I decided that if Shannon were to be killed, and I was left alive, I'd sacrifice this life of mine and bring this roulette of yours to ruin. This isn't one of the master's rules, and it certainly isn't one of yours. I made this rule myself. I'm not furniture anymore.
Fuck yeah!
I'm the zero on your roulette.
Okay. Cannon's face twisted with humiliation. It was clear that his defiance against his own weaknesses was being ridiculed somehow. Cannon's brow creased even further, and a fierce expression that he'd never shown to anyone appeared on his face. The hand grasping the hatchet was shaking. His sweat became drops which slid downward. It was clear that the emotion causing Cannon's hand to shake wasn't just anger. However, Cannon suppressed that emotion.
I won't let your words lead me astray again. This is where the demon's roulette ends. Wait another 1,000 years in hell for your next summoner. Beatrice.
When Ken raised the hatchet and tried to dive into the darkness definitely sneered. It sneered at the courage as if it were vulgar, lazy, futile, and meaningless.
Is
Is
that
that
the
the?
first one of those laughs?
I think it is. I was about to ask the same thing.
This is a turning point.
Cannon, his hatchet still held aloft. Couldn't take another step after that. With a clang, the hatchet that he'd been grasping fell and rolled on the floor. And following that, with a pair of thuds, Cannon's knees hit, left and right. That hand, which looked like it was trying to catch the sky now that the hatchet had been dropped, gradually lowered, landing on his chest. Then the other hand did the same. Right there, a handle with a demon-shaped design was buried into his chest. The same type of weapon that had been stabbed into Ava and Hideyoshi's forehead was in Cannon's chest.
Mm.
Cannon was curled up in anguish, fresh blood dribbling from the corner of his mouth. It was makeup too extreme for Cannon's white skin. Around the scene, the glittering gold butterflies danced through the darkness, mesmerizing. This is a beautiful, beautiful dance. A funeral march of tribute, ridicule, and contempt for a single boy's self-sacrifice. Kennen had already been prepared for his own death, but although he could do nothing but accept the death he had received, he attempted one last measure of resistance. He grasped the handle of the weapon sticking into his chest with both hands, and gritting his teeth with an acute, unearthly pain, he pulled it out. For only a moment, a bright red spray gushed out. It made an unpleasant bloop sound. I'm pretty sure that... Oh, no, that was just an actual sound effect, okay. It
That
probably
was the gloop sound.
Yeah. It probably resembled the sound of Cannon's soul as it was sucked into the swamp of the dead.
Cannon-san. Someone.
Kumasawa screamed at the incomprehensible sight in front of her. Cannon was lying in a pool of blood. Kumasawa's heart was a complete mess. Ah, what a horrible fate. He wouldn't have been killed if I had been with him. Ah, what incredible luck. If I had been with him, I might have been killed too. Echi screamed. Her expression was filled with complete confusion, and all of the muscles of her face were pulled up almost as though she was smiling while crying. But no one could have made fun of an expression like this. This is Kumasawa! Actually, Kumasawa! The first one to dash in was Natsui holding the rifle. Battler and Genji dashed in after her. Normally, they probably would have started discussing the origin of that violent stench filling the boiler room. But after they saw Cannon, who was lying on the ground as if he were drowning in an ocean of his own blood, the stench wasn't important anymore. Natsuri! Genji, bring Dr. Nancho here! Natsui realized that, even though Cannon was on the verge of death, he was still conscious. So she sent Genji to get the doctor. Natsui, holding the rifle aloft, faced the darkness in the center of the boiler room and shouted, Who is hiding over there? Come out quietly. If you don't come out from there, I'll shoot without mercy. We need light. Anotsui, let's light him up. Battler, thinking quickly, took out a large flashlight from the tool shelf alongside the door and used its light to cut through the darkness Natsui was glaring into. But the light only shone on the mechanical-looking piping and a door. The door had been left open a small crack, and it was obvious that someone had left through there in a hurry. Natsui, where does that door go? Genji, where does that door lead to? The courtyard. Hell, I get away with. Hell, I'd let you get away, you damn bastard! Battler let out a war cry as he slammed into the door. Cool air from outside suddenly rushed in. There were some thin, rough stairs leading up. Battler ran up them, shouting, "Wait, Battler-kun! It's dangerous to be on your own right now!" Natsui was also rushing up the stairs, chasing after Battler. They were in the courtyard. The courtyard of the mansion had been built strictly for lighting purposes, so it wasn't a very elegant place. It was surrounded on all sides. The air was calm and completely undisturbed, even though they could hear the sound of strong winds. There was only the gentle, sorrowful rain. As he ran through the cold and scattered raindrops, dashing up the stairs into the courtyard, Battler looked in every direction. Of course, the odds of him finding a suspicious silhouette just standing around nonchalantly were pretty much zero. Battler spun, looking all around. He turned again and again, spinning until he almost lost his sense of direction. He prayed that he would see the culprit somewhere in the scenery, but there was no chance. All he saw as he spun was more and more of the mansion's heartless walls and windows. Furthermore, there were two entrances into the mansion from the courtyard, and neither of them were locked. Because the courtyard can be entered from the outside the mansion, the doors had been built without locks. He didn't know which one they had left through. He had to give up. Battler pounded the wall with his fist, swearing, "Battler-kun, you mustn't run ahead by yourself!" Battler-kun? Battler pressed his forehead against the wall, which he scratched at with his fingernails as he cried. Damn it, damn it, damn it! On Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi, young Cannon-kun, you killed a full 6 people, and that wasn't enough, so you had to kill 3 more! Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi were always kind of fun. I met Cannon yesterday, but I'm sure I'd gotten along fine with him. Why did you kill them? Why? Why? You know when people die, they don't come back to life again, right? They're gonna quickly sprout up again like bamboo shoots. Why did you kill them? Why? Why? Ah! Battler was a boy who could understand the feelings of pain and regret in a person's heart. So he cried. With all his strength. Natsui, who had always thought of Battler as a frank person, was a little surprised to find he had this delicate side. And at the same time, she understood how he easily hurt the heart of a young person could be. So she held him. It's alright. I'll definitely protect you, George-kun, Maria-chan, and Jessica. As a mother, and as a representative of the Ushiromiya family. Battler, after sobbing into Natsui's chest for a while, wiped his tears with a bitter smile, as though he had been like that the whole time, and tried to appear as though he cried more than enough already. Anyway, what the fuck? Oh god. Sorry, oh god. Well, that ruined that dramatic moment.
You're okay.
Anyway, let's go back down for now. Protecting ourselves is a higher priority than finding the culprit. Tomorrow, the boat will arrive. After that happens, the police will come and everything should be brought to light. There's no way the culprit can escape this island, no matter how much they struggle. That's right. When the police come, when the seagulls cry, the crime will be solved. But, for some reason, Battler felt a slight sense of uneasiness, as if the seagulls would never cry again. That couldn't be true. When the typhoon passes, surely the lively seagulls will return to the harbor again. All right, and we'll end it there.
Oh yeah, I was gonna suggest we pause there too.
Oh, God damn it. Why do I always get confused with this fucking menu? All right. Thank you for another very intense, for joining us for another very intense episode of Umineko.
Film was really good though.
It was really good.
Really, really good.
How much longer do you think we have for episode 1?
Um, 1 or 2 at most.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Well,
I'm guessing.
I hope you'll join us, because shit's only gonna get weirder. And it's gonna keep getting weirder.
Oh yeah.
So thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, or whatever.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.